Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a really profound talk from Loon, given on November 13th, 2022. And what I love about it is that it's not about just practicing something. It's an invitation to become a direct explorer of your own mind. It all kicks off with a question that, honestly, might just stop you in your tracks.
So, the whole thing starts with this simple but kind of mind-bending irony. We all know we have a mind, right? It thinks, it feels, it worries, it's always on. But have you ever actually tried to stop and find it? The moment you look for it, poof, it vanishes. It's a real puzzle, isn't it? How can something that is so constantly present be so completely impossible to pin down?
Well, the reason it's so hard to find is that we're basically using the wrong tool. We're trying to see our mind, as if it's some object, with a shape or a color. But the mind isn't like that at all. The key is to make this fundamental shift in our approach, from trying to see to simply knowing. You can't literally see restlessness, but you know when it's there. You can't see clarity, but you absolutely know when your mind is clear. It's about learning to recognize the quality of a mental process while it's actually happening.
Okay, so this whole shift from seeing to knowing, it leads us straight to the core insight of this entire exploration. It turns out the mind pretty much operates in two distinct modes, and understanding the difference between them, well, that's the whole ballgame. Let's break down this idea of reality versus the concept.
First up, there's reality. Now think of this as the raw underlying function. It's the process, the action, it's the verb. So if you're drawing, the reality is just the pure function of your hand moving a pen across the paper. It's the doing part, moment by moment.
And then, on the other hand, there's the concept. This is the end product. It's what that function produces. It's the noun. So while the function is the act of drawing, the concept is the picture of a house or a tree that shows up on the paper. It's the story that the function ends up creating.
And here's the critical piece of the puzzle from the talk. Our attention is almost always completely captivated by the concept, the picture, the story, the final destination. We get totally lost in the end product, and we're completely unaware of the underlying function that's creating it in the first place.
And this distinction is playing out all the time, in everything we do. The reality might just be the simple function of driving, hands on the wheel, foot on the gas. But we get lost in the concept of traveling. The reality is the function of walking, step by step, but we're caught up in the concept of getting somewhere. We fixate on the noun and we completely miss the verb that's happening right now.
So you might be thinking, okay, interesting, but why does this matter so much? Well, this isn't just some mental exercise. This is the absolute key to understanding the very root of our psychological suffering.
You see, the most powerful and often the most problematic concept we all live with is the idea of a fixed self. We experience ourselves as a noun, a solid, continuous me. But in reality, as the talk points out, there's just an ongoing, ever-changing mind-body process. We're a verb, not a noun.
And this is just crucial. All our suffering, our fears, our anxieties, our wanting more, our pushing away, it doesn't exist in the raw reality of the mind's function. It only comes to life at the conceptual level. It lives inside the story of me, my life, and my problems.
The talk puts it in these really stark, unforgettable terms. The very concept of you, this idea of a separate self that has to be protected and promoted, that's the entry point. That's where the whole cycle of dissatisfaction and struggle begins. It's a pretty powerful thing to sit with, isn't it? So, if suffering is all tangled up in this world of concepts, what's the path forward? Well, the talk suggests the way out isn't some complex technique. It's actually a simple but incredibly profound choice we can make in any given moment. A choice about where we place our attention. This really lays out the fundamental choice we have. We can keep our attention locked on the world of concepts, the world of me, my story, my past, my future, and that path, as we've seen, it leads to worry and grasping and suffering. Or we can learn to shift our attention to the underlying reality, the raw functions of seeing and hearing and thinking as they happen. This other path, it doesn't magically make problems disappear, but it can disconnect us from that extra layer of suffering we add on top.
So how do we actually do this? The invitation here is to basically relearn how you observe your own mind. It just starts by noticing that you are thinking. But then, and this is the key part, instead of getting swept away by what you're thinking about, the content, the story, you just gently shift your attention to the raw energy,
the simple function of thinking itself. You watch the process, not the product.
Look, this isn't just a theory to understand. It's a direct exploration you can begin right now, this very moment. As you're listening to my voice and looking at this slide, what's actually happening? There's the raw function of hearing, the function of seeing, the function of understanding. Can you notice those processes at work right now, before they all collapse into a story? That is the exploration. And it all begins with this one simple question. Where are you placing your attention?